Okay. Good evening, everyone. I believe we are doing great today. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good
Okay,
evening, sir.
yeah, so let's stay muted most of the time so that we don't have interference. Unless one person wants to speak, then we can. I think the noise is getting interwoven together. Do we understand? Okay, so thanks for joining today. And we are going to continue our class. I can see Aisha from the back end, and we expect others to join. So if you are joining us, um, let us know that you are here. Who is, if you are watching from YouTube now, you can just state your name. I can see Aisha, Amzat Aisha, I've stated her name. Yeah, Samuel Toluwani has stated her name. Then we should have Esther, should have, think, Jejola Samuel, and others should join us. So for those that are on stage, we are going to be interacting together and discussing about ecosystem of aquaculture in Nigeria. So don't mind, I am in a double meeting. That is why we actually started late. But I'll try to not really pay attention to that. It's also an important meeting, but then let us progress with what we have today. Right. So how many of us knows the number of associations that we have in Nigeria when it comes to aquaculture, and you are part of any of the association? When it comes to aquaculture in Nigeria, how many of us are aware of association and we are part of one? If you want to speak, you can unmute from the backstage here. If you want to drop your own opinion from there, you can also, from YouTube, you can also mention. So we are not. Okay, I can see Tolumeri mentioned last Kafa. Who else? Who else wants to give us something? So those that are on the backstage, they are not. They don't know any association, and they are not part. I want to be sure you guys are here. You can just respond.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what about Kara Khalifa? Are you aware of any? Okay, our network is bad. I'm not going to waste much of our time because we've spent some time already. Right. So I'm just going to go into today's teaching or lecture, whatever you call it. But this is going to be practical because today I'm going to give us an assignment. Then we're going to work on it and submit before the end of before next week Friday. So this chapter or this teaching today is a job done for you, right? Because I would have said you should go and research about the ecosystem of aquaculture industry in Nigeria, right? And I'm just going to give you everything you need to know about the ecosystem, right? And I've ensured that this part of this teaching is reviewed with industry experts to be sure. So, the aquaculture sector in Nigeria starts as a critical pillar of the national economy, and it represents the primary source of high quality animal protein for a population projected to exceed 260 million in the next decade. Right? So we are saying Nigeria is about 200 million or so. Well, we are looking at we should exceed about 260 million in the next 10 years. So despite dividend in maybe dividing this demography. The industry operates within a persistent supply to demand deficit. Just like we've mentioned in the introduction, there's demand, there's supply deficit, and with domestic production about 1.2 metric million metric ton. The truth is that this is from FAO, but we don't know if it is actually true and which farm did they sample to get all of this report. So against what they say that we need is about 3.3 million metric ton. Now this gap is like maybe we have 2.1 million metric ton of fish to still produce to really be able to fill in the import space and the money that is draining foreign exchange reserves. So this is where you guys come in, right? So at the heart of this landscape are fish farmers associations, the institutional glue that has sustained the sector through decades of infrastructural decay, right? Economic volatility and policy inconsistency. That is, there are some policy made that are not really consistent or not even being used or enforced or being even see through to ensure that this policy actually is working. So to understand the future of Nigerian agriculture, you must dissect the background, operational benefits, and systemic failures of this organization while we evaluate the disruptive potential of agri-tech platform like the one you are here now, Aquaculture Technologies. What role do we play to fill in the existing governance and productivity gaps? Now, let's look at the institutional genesis, which is a historical mapping of fish farmer organizations in Nigeria, right? So, like I was mentioning to you guys yesterday, that the first, okay, you guys are back. I was mentioning to you guys yesterday that the first institution created was Faison, and I was asking how many of you are in Faison. Is it yesterday? Yesterday. It was yesterday. It was yesterday, okay. Faison. So Faison, which is Fishery Society of Nigeria, was inaugurated and formed in 1976 as the apex non-governmental organization, and it was designed not as a grassroots farming cooperative but is one of the professional scientific society that is in charge of research, policy advocacy, and capacity building. Now, why we are doing this is for you to know what exists and what are the failures. So, and what is left, what are the gaps that can be filled with the functions of this society or association. So, we are understanding the ecosystem in Nigeria. Number one, you need to understand this Faison. And what did I say they do? They coordinate research, advocate for policy, and they build capacity. So for nearly a half century, 1976 is not small. Some of us, many, it's not even all of us are not born then, right? Since Faison has been existing, right? So for nearly half a century, Faison have served as the intellectual custodian of the industry, right? So publishing the Nigerian Journal of Fisheries and maintaining membership base that includes scientists, corporate entities, high-level policy consultants, and so on and so forth. So if you really want to date back to aquaculture when it comes to Nigeria, you have to look at Faison. Faison is the main deal, right? Faison is the main deal. And Faison, well, while they are providing all this professional framework, the rise of commercial catfish farming started in 1990s. I think Perpetua was born then, right? Or maybe Tawakalitu in the 1990s.
No, sir.
No, I
Okay,
beg.
okay, so I thought you started the evolution, but it's not far fetched though, right? However, So they started, that was when the rise of catfish farming started and necessitated the creation of more production of oriented bodies. And that is where CAFAN was now formed, the Catfish Farmers Association of Nigeria, called CAFAN. It emerged during this period. I am supposed to walk you guys through how fish emerge, but maybe we'll do that in another session. So during this period, as Kafan became the dominant voice for the subsector that accounts for about 70% of Nigeria's aquaculture output. So we can't leave out the history of Kafan, right? And it can be linked to someone, our former president, which is President Olusegun Obasanjo. He was the one that founded the association to empower smallholder producers. So you can't reference Kafan today and not reference President Olusegun Obasanjo, right? So the association history has not been without turmoil. Well, a significant route led to the splitting of the Kafan. So it was Kafan, CAFAN. But when some things were happening, there were some history and turmoil between those people. Then I say, okay, we want to split. Some will be Kafan, CAFAN, and another person will be Kafan, CAFFAN, which is Catfish and Allied Fish Farmers Association of Nigeria, right? So some were now Kafan. I think the two current presidents, maybe they are in the east side. One is in Abuja. I think one is in the east side. So if you go and check, there's Kafan and there's Kafan. I don't know, it still sound the same way, right? So that division has persisted for years. In this last, you were there. Uh, I think someone on the YouTube page, Samuel Toluani was there in the last Kafan general meeting that we had, right? Last year, maybe November. I think it's last year November. They were issue and people were raising concern that what are these people doing? Let them even congest together, let them be one. Why can't they be one? Why is this division? We don't even understand the role of this. We don't even understand the role of this. It's clashing. What's the function, right? You see, all this division has led to one of the big issues that we have in the industry. Association has seemed to work, but there are too many associations and it's not making the thing effective. This one will say this one will say this. Fish farmers here will agree on this, fish farmers here will agree on this. You see that? So it has weakened the industry collective bargaining power. It was not until December 2021 that a symbolic unity cake was cut at the Obasanjo Conference Center in Abeokuta, signaling the formal reunification of this faction and the renewed commitment to standardizing sales and pricing. But till then, they did that in 2021, but till now, they are still splitted. There's still no unification. They're still splitted. So imagine. So the diversification also saw the registration of Tilapia Aquaculture Developers Association of Nigeria. So all this diversification, when tilapia came into the market, they now say, okay, let's also create Tilapia Aquaculture Developers Association of Nigeria. That one was created in June 6, 2014, right? As an affiliate of Faison, Titan focused on specialized aquaculture system, particularly cage culture water bodies. That's why most of the tilapia farmers, you see them in Ekpe, Lagos Lagoon, or Badagry, and promotion of monosex tilapia production with to compete with the smuggled imports from China. So more recently, the digital revolution fostered the birth of the Fish Farmers Association, which is TFAN, the Fish Farmers, in October 7, 2020. So TFAN requests a new breed of association born out of a need for safe online space, free from scammers or and pseudo farmers that plague social media platforms like Facebook, within its first year, and they grew up to like 37 organic members. They utilize Telegram, Facebook to provide real-time peer-to-peer education as at when they started. So you can see how the system has worked so far through association. Now, let's look at the value proposition of what all of this association has done. Number one is they can have a quantifying member benefit and gains. So when you join a fish farmer association in Nigeria, it's often a survival strategy for smallholder. Then, mostly smallholder commercial farmers, you hardly see them coming to sit down with you guys in meeting. So who makes up? It is mostly smallholders that makes up about 80% of the industry we are in. Let's say we have over 2.5 million farmers. 80% of them are smallholders. The commercial guys are just little. So the benefit derived from these communities are maybe spanning through financial inclusion, which we are still seeing that is still void, not really progressive, but in a bit it's just intermittent. Technical education and market stabilization. But the market stabilization are the value they propose. But is it what is there today? Is it as seen today? Right. So one of you guys' assignments will be that you are going to do your research about associations that are outside there and check. Maybe you can interview one person that is part of the association and ask financial inclusion, since they have been part of this association, what have they gotten? Right? In terms of technical education, how much of technical education are they benefiting from? And on market stabilization, how much have they been able to stabilize price of fish in the market for them, right? Or price of feed and all of that. So we are going to work on that question over the week. Then we come and discuss it next week Friday. So the next one is financial inclusion and input subsidization. So one of the most immediate gain for members is the access to institutional credits and subsidized inputs. Like we see that Lascafan in Lagos they are doing Onje Eco, they call it Onje Eco, where the they partnered with Lagos State Ministry of Agri, could partner with feed producers like Brook Crown and be giving farmers feed at 20% off of the normal price. So you see, so traditional banks often view aquaculture as a high risk venture. Traditional banks now, UBA, First Bank, but membership in a recognized cooperative change risk profile. So cooperative has been seen as, oh, when they say that these people are cooperatives, blah blah blah, they do their things together, they get their stuff together, then they can say, okay, let's fund them because they are all together. We are not funding only one farmer, we are funding a joint farmer, then we can be sure that we are going to get our money. So through Fish for ACP initiative, the partnership with the Bank of Industry and FCMB, First City Monument Bank, association members have accessed single digit interest rate loans totaling over about maybe 165 million in specific cluster like the Eriwe Farm. Eriwe Farm is being managed by Dr. Marcus Adeni in Ijebode. So in state-led transformation projects such as OG Step in Ogun State, for over 4,200 farmers that received 195,000 plus bags of fish feed at 30% subsidy, right? So a direct government investment of about 2.7 billion also facilitated through this association structure over the years. So these financial lifeline are critical in a sector where feed costs represent about 70% of production expenses. Another one is the technical capacity and modern technology adoption. So the association serve as the primary conduit for extension services. Kafan, Tadan, name it. They regularly organize workshops, maybe even though it's once in a year, on high impact technologies such as floating feed, monosex, tilapia breeding, and value added processing. Research indicates, research indicate that these guys, Kafan, um, they have been able to adopt about 87% of floating feed. And when we say floating feed, those are feed from companies abroad, they bring it into the country, right? So they have been able to adopt all of this. I've been able to train them. Sometimes they come up with train the trainer workshop on how to access mono sex tilapia tree kits, provided by international partner like World Fish and uh, some programs that really happened during those period. So digital association like the TFAN that we mentioned, also they do Sunday free teaching session, just to transform their informal chat into an online school for fish farming business. And that they award certificates in the process. Then we have market stabilization and middleman mitigation. The collective power of association is only effective weapon against the fish mafia. Who are the fish mafia? The middlemen, right? Who traditionally dictate farm gate price. So the Aqua Rights Committee established by CAFAN then, they aim to ensure that farmer process at least 50% of their harvest, primarily through smoking to avoid forced sales of live fish and undervalued prices. When you smoke your fish, you can be sure of long shelf life. And in the next 6 months, you can sell comfortably without anybody putting you on panic selling. Right? So by synchronizing sales and establishing quota system, association attempt to stabilize market price so that costs of production currently estimated at then not now 1,400 per kilo is reflected in the final sales price. But the price of fish is around 3,000 to 3,500 per kilo now. So things has increased from then. All of this is for them to be able to ensure that there are marginal profits for producers. Then we have the pains. What are the system obstacles and erosion of their profits? So despite all the structured benefits that you see, average Nigerian fish farmer operates in a state of perpetual crisis, not the perpetual that is on this call. So they operate in a state of perpetual crisis. That is, the pains of the community are deeply structural and often beyond the control of local association leadership. Feed price crisis will arise, economic attrition, all of that. Then we have environmental vulnerability and infrastructural decay, where there are no modern infrastructure that makes the industry highly vulnerable to environmental shocks. In August 2024, something happened. There was a massive flood in Ikorodu, Lagos, that ravaged about 12 farming clusters, and they lost in total about 150 million worth of fish in a single weekend. So you see, without adequate insurance, and we are still begging God, there should be adequate agri insurance policy where agricultural products can be insured. Well, there are a few implementations at the moment, but we are still looking at it being spread. It's not really circulating like that. So without adequate insurance or government cleared drilling system, such events can lead to total collapse of livelihood. Furthermore, the absence of a stable electricity grid prevent the adoption of precision tools like automated aerators, that was the recirculating system, forcing farmers to rely on traditional, less efficient methods that are susceptible to disease and high mortality. I think this was when more of antibiotics started going on the rise, right? Because they want to treat disease, they want to, and because of one health issue, there's uh, antimicrobial resistance that is causing drug that you use not to work because you have you have taken in fish that has not uh, hit its withdrawal period of antibiotics that were given to them before it's being sold to the market. So you have the export paradox and regulatory failure. In 2018, US ban was placed on smoked fish, and that remained a significant wound for the industry. The ban was a direct result of Federal Department of Fisheries failing to respond to 6 letters from the US Department of Agriculture regarding improper documentation and substandard product inflows. So this regulatory failure shut down a market where a piece of fish that was sold for 1,000 naira could locally fetch you $18 in the US. So imagine you are selling your fish 3,000 per kilo here and you have opportunity to sell it 15,000 naira per kilo or 20,000 naira per kilo over there. Is that not money? Right? That's money. That's why we are looking for exports, foreign exchange, and all of that. So farmer who invested millions in high-end smoking kiln and processing plants now found their assets wasting away because they can only make money in the country and they are like operating less than 10 capacity because the domestic market cannot absorb the surplus at premium price. Right? How many of you here have bought fish? Eh? That is, uh, they say, okay, you bought smoked fish and it's five that is there. The answer is 20,000. And that's mostly what you see there, 20,000 for smoked fish when it comes to catfish. Our naira is not even good. So it's discouraging. It's discouraging. Right. So these are the issues that we are having with association structure when it comes to Nigeria. We have the loophole analysis, the governance and data vacuum. Right. This is where we will come in. Traditional associations, while effective as social nets, when you say social, we have social power. They have failed to address the fundamental information asymmetry of the sector. Right? This governance vacuum is characterized by several critical loopholes, and the first one is the data void. So there's a profound lack of capacity for data collection at the farm level. Many farmers don't keep data, they don't keep records, and that is the foundation, right? So this data void, statistics on their stocking density, on their FCR, on their real-time mortality are non-existent. I'm still speaking to a customer today, one of our customer in England, and because he had that exposure to know that, oh, see how they are doing aquaculture here, he's prepared to buy a fish camera that can actually be put into his water at £2,000 because he wants to get real time data of how many fish is there, what is my FCR per time, right? So the industry becomes invisible to formal financial institutions. People can't fund fish farmers without records. You can't prove that this is your stocking density over time. There's no data records to show that this is my FCR, this is my production history. How do they want to finance you? The second one is weak extension continuity. That one is even worse. Association where they hold workshop but they lack the manpower for constant on-farm supervision. How many extension service personnel that we have today? Even we, I think 2 years ago, we tried to start Aquaculture extension service. It was so stressful because there was no money to push. So extension services are often epileptic, leading to suboptimal management practices that result in high fish loss. So I'm exposing you guys to know these are the ecosystem of aquaculture in Nigeria, but there are still issues with them, and there's a way you and I can come in to fill those gaps by getting the right knowledge of what has worked and what is not working and how to ensure that you are not also repeating that same mistake, right? So another one is trust and leadership fragility. The internal transactions are high due to a lack of trust between farm owners and laborers, and this happen occasionally between members and association leaders who may monopolize access to government grants. um mean that they will get grant o, it will not reach members, or some certain exco will just say dey share it among themselves. See, these are the issues that need to be solved when it comes to trust and leadership fragility. We have supply chain opacity, the path from fingerlings to fork, right? You see us now, we are creating smarter marketplace where we know that distribution is key, access to diverse customers, wide range of customer is key. So the path from fingerlings to fork is fragmented. There's no centralized data platform that tracks a fish from the hatchery to the dinner plate, right? Which is essential for export certification and consumer trust. So if you want to track this, it means that, like, we were having a class one time and we are studying about traceability. That's emerging technologies in aquaculture, and we are talking about traceability. So I took the topic in class, and I had to dig up a video of how a fish from the farm gets to the table of you, someone like you. And what did they do is, when maybe they are farming it, they are going to tag it. At tagging, you see it is we call it, what do we call it? Oh, I'm trying to remember. Blockchain technology. Yeah, it's blockchain technology that they use for traceability. So with that code embedded in tagging the fish, when they move it to the next place, they know what has happened. You scan the code, right? And you scan, you at the time you got the fish, you input the time, you input what was done to it, the process it went through, and the time is going to be leaving your own stage. Like, it's traceable. So when they take it and they take it to the supermarket, they also input the time those fish got into the supermarket. And when it's blockchain technology, you cannot edit the information or delete it. It's there. So you can actually track the history of from farm to fork of that fish. Is being done in advanced country, but Nigeria, we are still far behind, right? So there's no aquaculture training in dealing in depth with aquaculture as a business, and that is why you see us taking our time to say we want to teach this. So value chain actors, each actors in aquaculture value chain influence efficiency and pricing, and no one operates in isolation. If you have attended most of our digital training, I think we taught on value chain actors, right? Input suppliers such as hatcheries and feed producers directly determine your production costs, while farmers, farm workers, processors, and cold chain operators, they influence the quality of fish that will be produced, the volume of what eventually gets to the market. So if farmers and farm owners or farm workers don't have funding, if farmers don't have funding to produce more, the volume of fish that will get to market will be small. So if those that are doing the input supply, like the fingerlings that are producing fries, are not producing quality fingerlings, disease will set in and the volume resultant effects will be small before e get to market. So traders, retailers, and consumers, they play a major role when it comes to price stability, because you that you have spent money, and at the end of the day you lost a lot of fish in the process. The one you have, you want to sell it, hmm, you'll be forced to sell anyhow, or you want to sell at a greedy price just to make all your loss back. So and regulators alongside financial institutions, they also shape compliance, but that's not been enforced in Nigeria ecosystem that we are, which they also supposed to be able to shape access to funding. We are not seeing that. The truth is simple. Value chain in aquaculture is gained through efficiency and lost through waste. And where does this waste happen? It shows up in poor feed conversion, right? When you get a feed and your fish they eat the feed and they are not converting it to flesh, that is waste. Waste of time, waste of money, waste of energy, waste of everything, right? High mortality due to poor management leads to waste of money, waste of time, waste of effort, waste of energy, delayed harvest timing, and weak market access or poor pricing decisions. So the painful part is that most of these losses are not accidental, they are preventable, but only if these farmers manage the system properly. So when I say that farmers that are complaining about feed is costs, they are cowards. No, yeah, it's true that feed is costs. Maybe they are not totally cowards, right? But then there are other things that they are in control of, that they can actually manage to get the result that they want. If environmental factors such as regulations is constant. So if you must win in aquaculture business and in the industry, you have to have this understanding of the ecosystem, because the sector has survived through association approach. You see, I've showed you how the sector has survived right from 1976 when Fison was created. And I believe it has come to stay. Association. But we need something deeper and practicable. So this is why I've given you secrets and systems that you need to start and build. So if you are looking to join association, know you know the benefits and you know the problems that are there, right? So um next of what we are going to do is we are going to go into the three arms of any aquaculture business in our next class tomorrow evening. But then I think we still have much more time. Let me quickly walk you through what I should have walked you through the first day. I think I skipped that part. If you have questions, please drop your questions. Right? Drop them in the comment section from YouTube. So those that are with me here, do you have questions? Let me hear from you guys. Do you have questions? Me, I'll ask question. You don't ask question. Me, I'll ask my own question. Yeah, no question. Right?
Hello,
Okay,
sir.
no. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. The pin system obstacles. Can you explain the perpetual crisis, please?
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry,
Perpetual is
perpetual.
there now. Perpetual should be able to explain perpetual crisis.
I need to
Perpetual,
explain the perpetual crisis, sir.
perpetual, your name was used. Will you explain the perpetual crisis?
Uh, it's like everlasting crisis. That's what I just understand. I don't know.
Okay, so on the pains and system obstacles and the erosion of profitability. So we said the average Nigeria fish farmer operates in a state of perpetual crisis. That means something so significant that it's lasting for a long time, right? So you see, there are a lot of benefits, but when it comes to things that erode their profits, we talk about their management. We talk about external factors like the input suppliers, right? So when we say they are in crisis, they're in crisis because feed is not friendly to them. Also, they don't have some of the knowledge on aquaculture as a business. So these are crises that we look at and say, oh, this will erode their profits. These are obstacles for them to really be profitable. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I'm just going to do this walkthrough very fast. So there's a quick data here. Before 1950s, that was before the formal aquaculture began. So fish farming was very basic and most people relied on capture fisheries. I believe you know what capture fisheries mean. Capture fisheries is you go into the water, you fish, and you go and sell. It's not like aquaculture. So you go and capture fish in the water. So there was no structured breeding, feeding, or management system as at then. That's before 1950, right? So, but from 1950 to 1960, this is when the colonial masters, right? The colonial government introduced fish farming techniques, and that was when the Panyan fish farm, that's the first farm ever created in Nigeria. Panyam fish farm came into establishment, right? So, and they focus on tilapia then because it was perceived as hardy. So, if you want to know the first fish we started with, it's not catfish, it's tilapia. They saw it as oh, it's very hardy as at 1960s. But when the 1970s era came to 1980, that was post independence. You know, Nigeria has gained independence already, and expansion started, which was after Nigeria gained independence. So aquaculture was promoted as a means for food security as at then. Then NEOMA, I believe all of us know NEOMA, National Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research. Establishment was made. So they established NEOMA around that time. And evolution of catfish farming started with 18 pond. So 1970s to 1980s is when catfish farming started and NEOMA too was established. So when we move to 1990s to 2000, which is known as the commercial awakening, a lot of private farms, a lot of private farms started emerging, right? A lot of private farms started emerging at those time. Entrepreneurs like you and I started coming out, who we can call the early adopters. So catfish farming became popular but not famous. Like Mr. Sergio used to say, that's my mentor, my daddy. So he used to say that catfish is popular but not famous. So then we had archeries coming up, then commercial feeds started being introduced into the system, aquaculture system. Then in 2010, that is where the intensification age, when we say intensification, it means that they are not doing it at large quantities, intensified. So aquaculture became more business oriented. Yeah, even though they're not doing it as business, but you know, when it's early stage and it's no there's no really competition, you can make money. So people started adopting concrete tanks during the 2010 era, recirculate agriculture system, and the Federal Department of Fisheries role started, right, to take form and shape. Also to note, youth involvement started during this age. So youth involvement started, and those are the youths that we have then. Some of them were not really professionals, but now they are old. They carried their knowledge into the industry and carried it for a long time that is not even sustainable in the now. So in 2020s till date, known as the modern age, where Nigeria is now ranked the largest producer of fish in Africa, with catfish being the main product. Here data becomes key, water quality becomes vital, technology is now the order of the day, investment is crawling in, but the challenge are enormous, or the challenges are enormous. So where do we think aquaculture is heading to? at this moment that we are. There are four emerging trends that we've looked at. So the first one is smart aquaculture, where there's going to be use of AI, automation, and IoTs, Internet of Things. We are looking at sustainable practice, where in the long run we are going to see that fish are going to be vaccinated against disease, and taking biosecurity very serious, best management practices very serious, and export oriented production. Very soon Nigeria will be able to export their product if sustainable practices can be put in place. And one of the emerging trends is youth led agribusiness revolution. That is, you guys need to take over. So if you guys must take over, you guys must have the right knowledge. That's why we are investing our time and say, oh, let us train people with the right knowledge. So looking at this trend and all of these things I've mentioned to you, see that there's a change in form, there's a change in rule. If you don't understand the history, you won't know what to do next and what not to do. So that is where we see new entrants. They'll be running fish farms like as if they are still in the colonial and post-independence age, where data is not key, where data is not being used to make decision. So the information, the difference between where you are now, right, and where you want to be when it comes to aquaculture business is this information you are receiving. You must understand it and you must act on it, right? So this is where I'm going to stop today and take questions before we close. So who have questions? From YouTube, do you have questions? From the backstage, do you have questions? So I'm going to ask everybody on this call and those that are in the YouTube, in one sentence, write what you've learned today in the comment section. In one sentence, write what you've learned today. Then for those that are here, Emmanuel, go first. What have you learned today? Emmanuel. Is Emmanuel there? Okay.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I said, what have you learned today?
What I learned the is I learned the like how fish ecosystem come up. So and then I learned about the histories, like the strategies, and then the advantage of joining being the membership of the ecosystem of agriculture in Nigeria, and then the disadvantages too, and some other thing like that. So,
Okay. Let's have Perpetua. What have you learned today? Those that are on YouTube, please let's type in the comment section.
So I learned about aquaculture associations, and these are a group of fish farmers that come together to form a society. Examples are the Kafan, the Faison, the other Kafan, and the likes. And their main aim is to create market stabilization, financial inclusion. That's easy access of finance to farmers as well as loans. And basic issues that they face are weak extension, continuity, infrastructure, decay, and all of that. And they also learn that for like the main trend in aquaculture, that is where aquaculture is heading now, is smart technology, youth inclusion, and the rest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so
You
much. So
so
let's
much.
have
So let's have.
yeah, okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay, go ahead.
I learned about the system obstacle you mentioned earlier, the environmental affordability and the perpetual crisis too. Also, the history you mentioned about where culture is needed to um from the expansion promote as food security and others. I think that is also.
Okay, so let's
Okay,
wait
so
for
let's wait
Peter.
for Peter.
What have you learnt? Those are on YouTube. What have you learnt? Please type. We are waiting for you guys while I recap the assignment. So I said, yeah, your assignment is going to be a research. Look for these associations. Look for them and look for a farmer that is part of this association. Let's check what we've learnt if it's true. Let's check and ask. And I said you are going to ask about number one, what are the financial inclusion or benefits that they've gotten from there, right? Make a comprehensive report on, can ask from 1 to 3 farmers that are part of the association. What is which part of the association are they? What location? Then how much of technical education are they receiving from that association, right? And how has it helped their business? Anything you are asking, ask it in relation to how does the money they've gotten, wey may be part of the association, has helped improve their farm. What was the stage their farm is before, and when they got that funding, how did they improve their farm? What is the technical education they have been receiving and how it has improved their farm practices? And have they ever experienced market stabilization as a function of what the association has proposed to them as value? Have they been able to experience market stability? I hope you got the question. I hope you got the question that we're going to research on. I hope you got it. So I can see Tolimeri said, I learned about history of how the history of aquaculture association, the ecosystem of aquaculture in Nigeria are. I have learned, Aisha also said, I have learned the history of aquaculture, how division how the division in the industry started, and also the emerging trends in aquaculture leading to the future. So, do we get the assignment that I said we should do? Zone 3. Let me just paste it. I want to be sure we got the assignment. So, I said on financial
Financial
inclusion,
inclusion,
right?
right?
How many or how much of funding benefits have they gotten from the association, and how has it helped their business? Technical education, how much have they received and how has it helped their business? Then concerning market stabilization, what has the association able to stabilize market in terms of pricing of their products when they sell, pricing of input commodities when they buy? How much of that benefit have they gotten? Do we get the questions now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if you don't have any question, this is where we are going to stop for today. So thank you all for joining
Okay,
and
sir.
see
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
you tomorrow evening.
Very evening.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.